Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and/or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the series premiere of Falling Water. So, I don't really know what to make heads or tails of this episode. The series premiere. It seems like it's a lot of setup with like very few answers. First we get introduced to our three main protagonists, Tess, Taka, and Burton. Tess is kind of like, she does something, a design company, I guess. Like, she basically has a key eye to kind of tap into like, oh, what's going to be the new hot thing that's trending or whatever. And I guess she kind of sells that design to businesses and stuff like that. And that's kind of how she makes her living. You have Burton, who basically acts as security at a firm, not like a police security, but he's there to kind of make sure everything's above board and whatnot. And you have Taka, who's a cop, and it's just this confusing thing. Like, what I'm wondering, like, I know this series, like, I looked it up because I wanted to make sure it was before I went through this of adding it to Super-Fanta-Fi. I was going to watch it nevertheless. I just didn't know what to kind of categorize it, but I see it categorized as supernatural, at least one of the things I saw the genre reference as. So essentially, we've seen it twice. Like, there's something monstrous in this show. Like, for instance, there was that dream Burton had where he saw that dude Jones kind of walking away, and the shadow kind of morphed into something with wings. And then at the end of the episode, you see something, chains kind of rattling. So it's kind of like, okay, so is this show supposed to have monsters? Is it going to be kind of like dream monsters? Because, the whole premise of it is that, dreams are trying to tell you something. It's just you kind of have to be there, kind of piece everything together. Like, for instance, in Tessa's dream, she keeps seeing that little boy, which makes her believe, like, no, I had a son. And, she's going to all these different doctors, and they'll be like, oh, no, there's no way you had a child, because if you did, your cervix would be wider or whatever. And, it's like, oh, maybe I had a C-section, but then you'd have scars, or scars, can be taken away. And then she ends up talking to that guy, Bill. Interestingly enough, that's the same actor who played, was it Aaron on Revolution? Anytime I see that actor, I just go like, oh, Aaron from Revolution. That's just kind of how I just always refer to him as. But nevertheless, he points out to her that, like, it's like, no, he ends up giving her the information after she does this whole study for him. It's like, okay, you do have a son. Why'd you go, if you didn't, why would you go to a hospital and it says they're charging you for something, even though the hospital is saying, like, no, you never went there. And there's like the medicine she's basically in charge for is kind of something like, wasn't it an dermal? I don't remember, I'm being stupid, but it's just, essentially she had a kid. And so it's like, is that like a huge conspiracy or what? Like, what's going on with that? So why would someone cover up a lady having a kid? What would be the point of that? Not unless it's just some like shady stuff going on. Like, yeah, they took her kid and made her think she didn't have a kid, just kind of like super drugged her up so her memory was unclear. But it's like, if she was pregnant, why wouldn't she remember like 9 months of pregnancy? It's all a blank to her. So, there's obviously something going on suspicious there. But, because she had that dream at the beginning when we first got introduced to Tess, where she was having a baby, but someone was like, there's no baby here. So, once again, it's one of those situations where it's kind of like, oh, your dream is trying to speak to you. Same thing for Burton. We had that dream about his significant other. We still don't know whether she's an ex-girlfriend, ex-wife. Once again, saw that dude Jones walking away, that shadow thing. And then Burton gets run over by a car. He's there, and his significant other ends up getting taken. And he tries to call her later in the episode. It's like, oh, no connection. You don't know where she is. Looked at her for the hotel she was staying at. It's like, yep, she hasn't been here. If she had checked out, we would have her in the system. It's like, how far do your records go back? 8 or 9 years. So it's kind of like, okay. Like, what? And then we take Taka's side of things, where he's basically looking into a case where there's like an older woman that died. Following her address, it ends up leading him to a house where a whole bunch of people died, maybe kind of a cult thing or whatever. Apparently they all died, poisoning themselves. Kind of the running theory there. But he ends up finding out the lady, because originally her name was supposed to be like Anne Marie Bowen. And he looks at it and he's like, okay, he ends up pulling up a picture of her, but it's not the same person they found dead on the stairs. It's a lady who was across the street from him when he went up to the house. He's the one he told to call the police. And he goes over to that house where he thought she was, pulling out in front of, and it's like, nope, she doesn't live there. That was fake. So I guess like she saw him parked outside of her house or whatever, and so I don't know. Like I guess she panicked and she's like, okay, she did the opportunity while he was in the house to kind of just bounce, I guess. We had that keyword Topeka. Basically, it's connected to like people in the firm that Burton's running with. And it's basically like he thinks the whole thing is insider trading. But when you look at Taka's side of things, it's like Topeka was there on the wall written backwards amongst all the dead bodies. And there's a crossover between everyone's dreams. Like, for instance, when Burton was in a restaurant with his significant other, you saw Taka's mom in there. And then Taka was investigating, and he happens to look in the mirror, and he sees a reflection of the little boy from Tessa's dream. Can only assume that's her son. And it's like, I don't know what's going on in this show, but we had Jones. The moment he was like, taking off his tie, taking off his shoes, his watch, and kind of putting it somewhere, and just getting back to his his hotel room or whatever, and tearing stuff up. And it's like, okay, what the hell is he doing? I was like, because I was so sure, like, I was like, okay, he's taking the elevator. It's like, the fact that he threw it out, I was like, he's going to kill himself. He's going to go up to the roof. And it's like, oh no, he's not. I was like, okay, I see him walking. I was like, okay, so never mind. He's probably going to jump off the bridge. No, he's not. Gets back. I was like, I wasn't. But then he ends up going back to his hotel room. He's like, okay, you can call the police. I was like, what do you? Pulls out the gun, shoots himself. I was like, gosh. And he's saying that this is much bigger because Burton's kind of under the impression that this is all has to do with money. And he's like, because he had brought up the girl from Burton's girl, essentially, saying like, like he never went back to explaining it, but essentially he's making it seem like this is much more than just money. It goes beyond Jones, it goes beyond Burton, it goes beyond everything. And it's like, what exactly that means, we still like don't know. Like I said, it's the first episode, and it's hard to judge like really what the hell this show's about. I mean, granted, we had the guy Bill basically being like, dreams, like he wants to be able to make it so that everyone's dreams is kind of connected. We just can't see it. We can't, but he wants to eventually be able to kind of, without wires and machinery or whatever, be able to jump into other people's dreams. Because we kind of did similar. He kind of ran the experiment in this episode where he basically had Tess entering that guy Andy's dream. Now, I want to talk about that really quickly. Like, Andy, he's got a hole in the floor, and he's like, okay, don't tell Bill you saw me doing this. Just tell him I was playing the piano or something. And so, I don't know how to interpret that, whether it's like, I think that might have been Andy actually stealing from him, and that was him trying to make his exit from that place. Because at one point I was like, okay, is that supposed to be like a metaphor for him like moving on, that he was actually in a coma or whatever, and he was going down a hole to kind of be like, okay, goodbye. But it's like, now I think about the sack and the rope, it's like, no, he was robbing Bill, and Tess went along with it for whatever reason. But I was just, I guess that this is kind of, I really don't know. I'm confused on what the show is. Like, there's a whole thing about previewing, like, this. It's like, okay, this season on, Falling Water, but I stopped it there because I was like, I'm not about to watch this. I kind of want to go in blind in this series. Like I said, it seems like, they're setting it up to be kind of like there might be a whole monster angle to this. Like, whether it's kind of like allocated to just the dream world, or maybe in the dream world, this monster is actually, it's like a manifestation of something physical. Like, there's a bad person in the real world, and there's a manifestation of it in the dream world as this monster. But I don't know, maybe that's the case or not, or whether it is legitimately a monster. I keep saying that because I just don't know. And I don't know are the most intriguing thing ever. Like there's a whole thing with Taka's mom. Like, basically she seems to be in a, I don't know what kind of state, non-responsive state, but then he had that dream where basically it was like a little him trying to hug her, but she's pushing him away and running. And then there was the whole situation, and then like she's later on kind of playing with what you can assume to be Tess's child, and it's like, so is that her like kind of representing the fact that she always kind of pushed him away, or is that supposed to be kind of like a is that supposed to be leading him somewhere? Like she's kind of a guy or something? Because there was also like her face was all taped up and you saw her head kind of shaking back and forth when she was sitting in a chair. And then there's the whole thing about the house exploding, which I don't know whether that was in a dream or not. I think that was in a dream. Because he went to the water fountain and he saw that piece of paper that says his name is, and that was kind of it. It looked like a picture of Tess's kid. And it's like, I think this is going to be one of those shows where it's kind of like, you can't, it's kind of like Inception to a certain extent. That's like from the previews, I was like looking at the show, it's kind of like, I kind of got a bit of an Inception vibe to it. It seems like it's that, but not to that degree. But it's like, what I was about to say is like, it seems like Inception into the point of like, you have a hard time distinguishing what's real and what's not when you're awake and when you're asleep. So I don't know. I guess we really have to wait until the next episode to see what everything is. Like I said, I'm confused. I'm severely confused. I really don't know what to make heads or tails of the show. I mean, it seems very interesting. Like I said, it's an interesting premise, but I'm just curious to wondering where this will go. Are we dealing with some big secret organization? I can only assume everything is connected to those three, but it's like, it seems like out of any one of them, like if there is like a special dream power, it seems like Tess might have the most powerful one, because she seems the most special. It seems like she can kind of tap into it a little. It seems like, whatever the case may be, like all three of them are bound together, because even when like at the end where you had Tess's son kind of running through all those different places, he ran through the restaurant where Burton went to. He ran through the emergency room where Tess was having that dream at, and then he ran into like, I think Taka's room, like the apartment his mom lives in or whatever, wherever his mom lives, whether it's like assistant care or whatever. So they are connected, and like I said, they kept seeing things related to other people in their dreams. So like I'm thinking like maybe they are all, like maybe they are special. Like the reason why it's happening to these specific people. There's also that whole thing about Bill driving a bus and like Tess being on it, and like he literally ran over two people. Maybe that's supposed to be a metaphor of like, don't stick around Bill because he's willing to run over whoever he needs to kind of get what he wants. He will use you up and then throw you away. I mean, even, kind of like making a deal with the devil, because she is making a deal with him to kind of help him with his project. At the same time, he'll help her trying to figure out this whole situation with her son, which is kind of like, I don't know. I mean, with the level of covering up with her whole situation, it's like, that's got to be some government level covering up. But like I said, I don't know, because this show obviously has like a supernatural element to it, but I don't know whether it's like a supernatural only in the dream world, which that's all kind of a metaphor for what's going to be happening in the real world. Like like how deep does this go? Is it like basically your subconscious is trying to tell you something? All the key pieces are lying. I mean, it can't even be like, your subconscious telling you something, because it's just like, it seems like it's predicting stuff that you shouldn't really be able to know. Like the whole situation with Burton's significant other being taken is like, not less he was awake when it happened, but they kind of like drugged him and made him forget. Like maybe that's what happened with Tess. It's like, how could you forget like ever having a child? But she always had this dream about the kid, and it just kind of, she had this feeling, but literally everyone's kind of telling her, it's like, no, you never had a child. There's no way. Like 3 or 4 doctors have been like, no, that's not possible. So now she's kind of been told that she does. Not less it's just Bill kind of playing with her, just like, yeah, I'm going along with this just so that you'll help me. It's like, what I get, his ultimate goal is to kind of make it so that everyone can come together in dreams and kind of walk into another person's dreams, that dreams are all connected. We just kind of have to be able to break down the walls. And basically it's going to take a special someone to kind of break down that wall, to kind of open up that world to us that we have access to. But it's like, it can't all just be that. Like, you have to automatically think the worst of it is kind of like, what will that access do to someone? Will you be able to like mess with, kind of, will you be able to pull Inception type stuff where you implant thoughts and memories in people's heads like that? Or is it just kind of like you're able to tap into a whole level of consciousness that no one knew existed? Or, you know what I mean? Like being able to see things, maybe like dreams are kind of like, hey, the world is telling, like, the world is established, like, oh, this thing is going to happen. Like, for example, let's go back to Burton's significant other ticket. Like, the world knew what was happening, and yet the world is trying to send subtle messages to him in his, like, his subconscious mind is, you know, tapping into some vast consciousness that is telling him, like, this is going to happen, and is trying to give him keys to finding out, like, okay, like, this is going to happen, you know. So, I mean, I don't know. I keep saying it. We really will just have to wait to the next episode. Maybe I'll really have more to say, because literally this video has all been me. Well, video, audio has all been me just saying, I don't know. I'm, like I said, very intrigued, and I want to see where it goes from here. That's really all I wanted to talk about in this episode. To the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.